What makes a married man feel linked to you? Carl Jung. Have you ever wondered why a married man, someone who supposedly has everything settled in his life, suddenly seems magnetically drawn to you? It's not about beauty. It's not about seduction techniques. It's something far deeper, almost invisible, that Jung called the mysterious attraction of the unconscious. Picture this: a man with a wedding ring, a structured life, children, responsibilities. Yet when he's near you, something shifts in his eyes. He seeks your company. He creates excuses to talk. He feels a connection he can't explain, even to himself. What's happening in his psyche at that moment? The answer lies in a hidden territory of the masculine mind that most women don't know exists. Jung discovered that married men develop a specific type of psychological emptiness, an inner void that has nothing to do with their wives. And when a woman unconsciously fills that void, she becomes absolutely irresistible to him, not because she wants to be, but because she activates something dormant in his soul. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the 8 psychological triggers that create this dangerous connection, and why understanding them can change everything about how you see yourself and your relationships. 1. The shadow he hides from his wife. Every man carries within himself a secret version of who he really is. This hidden part contains everything he learned to suppress to become the husband society expects him to be. It's the rebel he suffocated, the dreamer he abandoned, the wild man he domesticated to fit into marriage. When he meets you, something extraordinary happens in his mind. You become the only person in front of whom he doesn't need to pretend. This psychological phenomenon occurs because marriage often demands that men adopt a fixed role. They become providers, protectors, the stable foundation of the family. But this role, as important as it is, doesn't encompass the totality of who they are. There's a part that wants to be irresponsible sometimes, that wants to laugh without thinking about consequences, that wants to say what really goes through their mind without filtering everything. When you appear in his life and somehow give him permission to be authentic, you're not just being a pleasant person, you're offering him something he hasn't experienced in years, the feeling of being seen for who he truly is, not for the role he plays. This creates an almost addictive bond because authenticity is one of the most powerful human needs. We all want to be accepted without masks. The danger here is that this connection feels so real and so deep that both of you can confuse it with love. But what's really happening is that he found in you a safe space to express parts of himself that his marriage doesn't accommodate. You become the keeper of his secrets, the witness of his true self, and that, in his mind, creates a sense of intimacy more powerful than many physical connections. This explains why married men often say they feel understood by someone new. It's not that their wives don't understand them. It's that with you, he doesn't need to be the responsible version of himself. He can be contradictory, vulnerable, even childish. And when a man finds a woman who accepts all these hidden parts without judgment, his psyche interprets this as a soul connection. That's the invisible power you hold without even knowing it. 2. The girl he never forgot. Inside every married man lives a ghost from his past. She's not necessarily a real person. Sometimes she's a composite of feelings, moments, and possibilities that never materialized. This feminine figure represents everything he once wanted but never had, or everything he had and lost before settling into his current life. When you appear, your presence unconsciously awakens this sleeping memory in his mind. This psychological dynamic is powerful because it's not about logic. He's not consciously comparing you to someone specific. Instead, certain qualities you possess, maybe your spontaneity, your way of laughing, or even your indifference toward him, trigger deep memories of what once made him feel fully alive. You remind him of a time when his life was full of possibilities, when every day held potential for something extraordinary to happen. Marriage, for many men, represents the closing of doors. It's a beautiful commitment, but it also means choosing one path and abandoning countless others. Most men make peace with this reality and live happily with their choice. But there's always a small part of them that wonders about the roads not taken. What would have happened if they had pursued that adventure? If they had been bolder? If they had chosen differently? When you show up with characteristics that echo this lost version of his life, you become more than just a person. You transform into a portal to everything he left behind. Your presence makes him feel young again, makes him remember who he was before responsibilities shaped him into who he is today. This sensation is intoxicating because it connects him to a part of his identity he thought was dead. The complexity here is that he's not really attracted to you as an individual. He's attracted to what you represent in his internal world. You're the living embodiment of his unlived life, the symbol of roads not taken, the echo of a younger version of himself that still exists somewhere in his psyche. Understanding this means understanding that the intensity he feels isn't really about you. It's about him trying to reconnect with parts of himself he abandoned along the way. If you want to understand what makes a married man feel linked to you, it's not emotion. It's an unconscious bond, explained by Carl Jung. Jung method, pinned in the first comment. 3. The freedom you represent. There's something about you that breathes freedom. It's not something you do intentionally. It's simply who you are. You make your own choices, follow your own rhythm, and live without seeking constant approval. For a married man trapped in routines and obligations, this energy is like oxygen to someone who's been holding their breath for years. You remind him that life doesn't have to be an endless sequence of duties and responsibilities. Marriage creates structure, and structure is necessary for building a stable life. But structure can also become a cage when it's too rigid. Many married men wake up one day and realize they're living on autopilot. Same schedule, same conversations, same everything. Their lives became predictable to the point where they can tell you exactly what will happen next week, next month, next year. Then you appear, unpredictable and alive, and everything changes. What happens in his psyche is fascinating. Your freedom doesn't threaten him, it inspires him. You're not demanding anything from him, not trying to fit him into any role, not expecting him to be someone he's not. This absence of pressure creates a space where he can breathe. Around you, he doesn't need to be the responsible husband, the perfect father, or the successful professional. He can just be a human being exploring a genuine connection with another human being. This explains why these connections often feel so light and exciting at the beginning. There are no expectations, no shared bills, no discussions about household chores. It's pure connection without the weight of daily life. Your freedom mirrors a version of life he remembers having once, but can no longer access. And because you embody this freedom so naturally, he starts associating you with everything his current life lacks. The trap here is subtle. He begins to believe that you are the source of this feeling of freedom, when in reality, you're just reflecting back to him his own desire to feel free. The freedom he seeks isn't in you, it's in him, waiting to be reclaimed. But in his mind, you become inseparable from this sensation, creating a bond that feels essential to his happiness. That's why he keeps coming back, keeps seeking your presence, keeps feeling like something fundamental is missing when you're not around. 4. The mirror that shows his true self. You see him differently than everyone else does. While his wife sees the man who forgot to take out the trash, and his colleagues see the professional who needs to meet deadlines, you see something else entirely. You see his potential, his intelligence, his humor, his depth. This perspective you hold acts like a mirror, reflecting back to him a version of himself he forgot existed. And once a man sees himself through eyes that recognize his true value, he becomes attached to that reflection. This psychological mechanism is powerful because identity is not fixed. It's constantly shaped by how others perceive us. When everyone around him treats him as a collection of roles and responsibilities, he starts to believe that's all he is. His sense of self shrinks to fit these limited definitions. Then you arrive with fresh eyes, seeing layers in him that have been invisible to others for years, and suddenly he remembers he's more than his daily functions. What makes this dynamic particularly intense is that you're not trying to fix him or change him. You're not his wife pointing out his flaws or his boss demanding better performance. You simply see him, appreciate him, and reflect back the qualities he values in himself but rarely gets acknowledged for. This recognition feels like coming home after a long journey. It's the psychological equivalent of someone finally understanding a language you've been speaking alone for years. The connection deepens because humans have a fundamental need to be seen and understood. We don't just want to be loved. We want to be loved for who we truly are, not for who we pretend to be or who others need us to be. When you offer this kind of authentic recognition, you're giving him something more valuable than attraction or affection. You're giving him validation of his core identity. This creates an almost spiritual bond in his mind. He starts to believe that you understand him in ways no one else can, that you have access to parts of him that remain hidden from the rest of the world. The truth is more complex. You might simply be paying attention in ways others have stopped doing, or you might be seeing him without the baggage of shared history and daily frustrations. But for him, this feels like destiny, like you were meant to enter his life to show him who he really is. And once a man finds someone who makes him feel truly seen, letting go of that mirror becomes almost impossible. 5. The adventure his life lost. Life becomes predictable after years of marriage. The same routes, the same meals, the same weekend plans. This predictability brings comfort and security, but it also slowly erases something essential in the masculine spirit: the need for adventure, for the unknown, for experiences that make the heart race. When you appear, you don't just represent a person. You represent the possibility that life can still surprise him, that excitement isn't dead, that he's not as old and settled as he thought. This longing for adventure isn't about being irresponsible or wanting to abandon his family. It's about a deeper human need to feel alive, to experience novelty, to test himself against the unknown. Marriage and family life, with all their beauty, tend to prioritize safety over exploration. The focus shifts to creating stability, which means reducing risks and unknowns. Over years, this creates a life that's secure, but lacks the electric feeling of not knowing what comes next. Your presence reintroduces unpredictability into his existence. Conversations with you go in unexpected directions. Time with you doesn't follow a script. You challenge his perspectives, introduce him to new ideas, make him laugh in ways he hasn't in years. This isn't because you're better than his wife, it's because you're new, and newness itself is an adventure. His brain, hungry for novelty after years of routine, responds to you with an intensity that feels profound. The psychological mechanism behind this is that humans are wired to seek novelty. Our brains release dopamine when we encounter new and exciting experiences. In long-term relationships, this novelty naturally decreases, and while deep love and companionship replace it, the absence of that rush can leave men feeling like something vital is missing. You become the source of that missing rush, not because of who you are, but because of what you represent, a door to a life less ordinary. This explains why married men in these situations often suggest spontaneous plans, want to show you new places, or seem more energetic and alive around you. They're not just enjoying your company, they're enjoying the version of themselves that exists in your presence. The adventurous man they used to be suddenly feels accessible again. You've become the bridge to a part of his identity he thought was gone forever, and that makes you feel absolutely essential to his sense of being fully alive. 6. The silence that speaks everything. Sometimes the most powerful connections happen in silence. You're sitting together, not speaking, and somehow everything feels complete. This comfortable silence terrifies and attracts him in equal measure because it's something rare and precious. With you, he doesn't need to fill every moment with words or entertainment. The silence itself becomes a form of communication, an understanding that goes beyond language. This creates a sense of intimacy that many marriages lose after years together. In most relationships, silence becomes awkward over time. It gets filled with television noise, phone scrolling, or forced conversation. But with you, silence feels natural, almost sacred. This happens because there's no history of disappointments or unresolved conflicts filling the quiet spaces between you. The silence is clean, pure, free from the weight of past arguments or unmet expectations. He can simply exist in your presence without performing or explaining himself. This type of connection touches something primal in human psychology. Before language, our ancestors communicated through presence, through shared silence, through being together without needing reasons or words. When two people can access this level of comfort, it feels like coming home to something ancient and true. For a married man who spends his days navigating complex verbal negotiations, at work, at home, with children, this wordless understanding feels like rest for his soul. The danger is that he interprets this comfortable silence as proof of a deep spiritual connection. What he doesn't realize is that this ease exists partly because there's no real-life pressure between you. You don't need to discuss mortgage payments or whose turn it is to handle difficult family matters. The silence is easy because it carries no weight of shared responsibilities. It's the silence of two people enjoying a moment, not two people building a life. But in his experience, this feels more real than many of the conversations in his marriage. His wife might fill silences with questions about practical matters or concerns about family issues. With you, silence just is. It doesn't demand anything or signify problems. This contrast makes him believe that what he has with you is more genuine, more connected, more soulful. He starts seeking these silent moments with you, treasuring them as evidence that you share something beyond ordinary human connection. And each silent moment strengthens his feeling that you understand him in ways words could never capture. 7. The mother he still seeks. Deep in every man's psyche lives his first love, his mother. This isn't romantic or strange, it's simply psychological reality. She was his first experience of feminine energy, his first source of unconditional acceptance, his first safe place. Many men spend their lives unconsciously seeking to recreate certain aspects of that original connection. When you provide comfort, acceptance, or nurturing presence without judgment, you're touching this primal need in ways that bypass his rational mind entirely. This doesn't mean you're acting like his mother, or that he sees you that way consciously. It's more subtle than that. Perhaps you listen without trying to fix his problems immediately. Maybe you accept his vulnerabilities without making him feel weak. Or you create a space where he can be imperfect without facing criticism. These qualities echo the unconditional acceptance he experienced in childhood, before the world taught him he needed to be strong and perfect all the time. Marriage often struggles with this dynamic because wives become partners in managing life's challenges. They need to point out problems, request changes, and hold their husbands accountable. This is healthy and necessary, but it also means the wife can't always provide that sense of complete acceptance without conditions. You, standing outside the daily struggles of his life, can offer something closer to that original maternal energy. Acceptance without agenda, presence without demands. What makes this particularly powerful is that men rarely recognize this need in themselves. They don't think I'm looking for maternal energy. They just know that being around you makes them feel peaceful, accepted and safe in ways they can't quite explain. Your presence soothes something deep inside them, something that's been seeking that particular quality of acceptance since childhood. This creates a bond that feels essential to their emotional well-being. The complexity here is that this isn't really about you as an individual. You're channeling an archetypal energy that every human seeks, the energy of unconditional acceptance and nurturing presence. He attaches to you because you've activated this need, but what he's really seeking is to heal the part of himself that never feels quite good enough, quite safe enough, quite accepted enough. Understanding this means understanding that the intensity of his attachment often has more to do with his internal landscape than with who you actually are. You've become a symbol in his psyche, representing the possibility of being loved without having to earn it constantly. 8. The soul recognition. There are moments when he looks at you and feels something inexplicable. It's not just attraction or friendship or emotional connection, it's a sensation of recognition, as if his soul knows yours from somewhere beyond this life. This feeling is what makes the connection feel destined, inevitable, bigger than both of you. Psychology calls this phenomenon projection of the anima, the feminine aspect of his unconscious mind that he's been seeking externally his entire life. Every man carries within himself an internal feminine figure. She represents his capacity for emotion, intuition, creativity, and deep feeling. Throughout his life, he projects this internal figure onto external women, seeking in them the qualities he doesn't recognize as living inside himself. When you appear with characteristics that match his internal feminine image perfectly, something magical happens in his psyche. He feels like he's found his missing piece, his other half, the person who completes him. This recognition feels spiritual because it touches the deepest layers of his unconscious. It's not based on logical compatibility or shared interests. It's based on you matching an image he's carried inside himself since before he could form memories. This is why these connections feel so powerful and so confusing at the same time. He can't explain why you feel so essential to him because the reasons exist below the level of conscious thought. The intensity of this soul recognition often makes both people believe they've found their true soulmate. But what's really happening is that he's encountering a living mirror of his own inner feminine nature. You're reflecting back to him the parts of himself he's disconnected from, his emotional depth, his creative spirit, his intuitive wisdom. This creates a sense of wholeness he hasn't felt in years, and he attributes that feeling to you rather than recognizing it's actually about him becoming more complete within himself. This is perhaps the most dangerous dynamic because it feels the most real. Unlike the other 7 connections, which can be understood and processed rationally, soul recognition bypasses logic entirely. It speaks directly to the deepest parts of human longing, the desire to find the one person who makes us feel complete, who understands us without words, who seems to have been waiting for us across time and space. When a married man experiences this with someone new, it can shake the foundation of everything he thought he knew about love and commitment. But understanding that this recognition is actually an encounter with his own unconscious can transform everything. The real journey isn't about finding you, it's about him discovering the wholeness that already exists within himself.